So I've been seeing a lot of people who are upset, a lot of raging going on in the gaming community because of microtransactions in games. I've even seen or heard some people claim that this is pretty much the end times, talking about how doomsday is right around the corner simply because microtransactions are in games from certain developers. So I wanted to kind of put my thoughts out there about this whole practice. And the reason that it's being talked a lot about this week is because it was brought up that Rise of the Tomb Raider is going to have something like 300 microtransactions, which is a ton. And I mean, if she's anything like my ex, then 200 of those are probably new shoes. But before we get into whether or not this is going to be game breaking, we got to remember that the game's not even out yet. And the way that I understand it is that there isn't a straight up like versus multiplayer mode in Tomb Raider, but there may be a system in place where you can challenge your friends, sort of like time trials and things like that. So some of these microtransactions are simply cosmetic. They're just skins, sort of like shoes. But some of these, what they're calling is cards, you can actually turn on and they give you different features. So like one card may give you attributes like big head mode, and another card may actually affect gameplay like being more bullet resistant. So it sounds a lot sort of like how Halo skulls work, how you can, turn on a skull before a level and it does something to that gameplay. They do point out and stress, and this is also happening in Halo 5 because there's some microtransactions in there as well, and both companies are stressing that all the content that you can unlock by paying money for, you can also unlock in-game by simply playing. And if you look at Uncharted 4, the special edition packages come with what's called Naughty Dog points. And if you read the description, it says, redeem the points to unlock new multiplayer content and character upgrades, which sounds a lot like microtransactions. I mean, you could list off several games recently that's come out, Metal Gear Solid, Evolve. Tons of games are implementing microtransactions. And they're nothing new. They've been around for a very long time. I remember doing a video way back when, whenever there was a Battlefield title that allowed you to unlock kits so that you could play them in game. They weren't anything special, they weren't anything exclusive, but if you played the game, you could unlock these guns and tools and accessories and everything. But for people who maybe had a family, they had a job, they had a life outside of gaming, they didn't have hours to spend to grind to unlock each class, then they could purchase these packs and still enjoy the game with their friends. They could still enjoy the base game, they could still shoot and kill people with the regular guns that happen, but if you wanted to try out a different, type tool or accessory, then you could buy into this. And the way that I looked at it was sort of like this. If I go down to Six Flags over Georgia and I buy tickets to get into the park, I can ride rides by simply waiting in line. Some days there's a long line. Or I can buy an upgraded pass, which costs more, so I'm paying for it. But instead of waiting in line, I can basically walk up to the front of the line so that I don't have to wait. And I usually buy the upgraded pass whenever I go to Six Flags because I hate waiting in line, and then sometimes I like to ride some rides more than once. I'm not riding a special roller coaster. There's not a separate thrill ride for me simply because I paid extra. I'm riding the same ride as everybody else. It's just that I didn't have to wait in line in order to ride it. So the way that I see it is I've played a lot of games over my life. And even a few mobile games, which, are renowned for having microtransactions. And I'll play mobile games if I'm sitting at the doctor's office or sitting on the porcelain throne. And while I may buy the upgraded pass at Six Flags to pass the line, I don't like to do it in games. I like to grind. I feel like I've accomplished something. If I'm waiting in line at a ride at Six Flags, I don't feel like I've accomplished anything really, besides just wasting my time. But in a game, it's a little bit different for me. But I have not one time ever purchased any microtransaction in a game. Not once. In all the years that I've played and all the games that I've played, I've never had to purchase one. I've still felt that I enjoyed a lot of those games even though they might have had microtransactions in them. I didn't feel like I was in any sort of disadvantage in the vast majority of those games, and I didn't feel like I was missing out anything either by not buying anything. And the majority of these microtransactions in games is simply cosmetic. You know, they don't affect the gameplay at all. Now, there are games out there that are pay to win, and people should know which games those are, and they should be avoided like the plague. You know, are there some devs out there that are going to take advantage of it, take advantage of you if they can? Sure. And again, those games need to be pointed out, and you need to avoid them. But do I think microtransactions are the end of gaming? No. We live in a capitalist society, so good ideas are going to be the ones that prevail. If you have a game system that's unfair, where it's pay to win, if you have a bad microtransaction system built into the game, then your game is going to fail. And other devs aren't going to follow in those footsteps. If you want to put marijuana leaves on your gun for $3 and give the devs some extra money so that the base game can remain at 60 and it's entirely optional, I mean, I really couldn't care less. Again, I think it all depends on each individual game and the way that they're using them. But it's not going to be a practice that, one, I praise. I'm not praising microtransactions. I'm not even supporting them because I'm voting with my wallet, so I refuse to buy into any of this crap. If I can't get it with the base game, then I don't need it. But I also don't think that you can put every game that uses them in the same category and demonize it. You can't banish them to the pits of hell forever simply because they give you an extra color for your gun, especially when you haven't even played the game yet. And, you know, I think it is shitty whenever game companies do put in content that you can't unlock in game. There's just so many variables that you have to look at. Somebody the other day was talking about GTA and how they were pretty much bashing it for all the microtransactions that it has in the game. I've got almost 100 hours into GTA Online, and I haven't spent one dime other than buying the base game. So I can tell you that I couldn't spend 100 hours into a game that didn't have a ton of content there. And again, I haven't felt like I've missed anything by not investing extra money into this game. But these developers, I mean, to me, they built a hell of a game. And so if they're being rewarded, if they're selling something else on the side that people want to buy into, that's sort of gimmicky for others like me, I mean, I have no problem with it. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect my base game. And I've still got a ton of content left to enjoy. You know, I've seen some people claim that they refuse to buy any game with microtransactions in it. Even though it may be a good game, even though it may have tons of content and regular unlocks, and then these same people will go out and buy amiibos, not even realizing that they're pretty much buying DLC packs for games, but whatever. The main point is, it's optional in most cases. Do I wish it wasn't there? Do I wish all content was included in the game from the very beginning? Does it irritate me that DLC packs for games are now announced before a game even comes out? Yes. I don't know who that doesn't bother. And it's also why I don't bother buying microtransactions, and I rarely ever buy DLC, period. I can count probably on one hand and not even use all my fingers the amount of DLC that I've purchased in the last few years. As long as it's not pay to win, as long as it's entirely optional, then I don't have a problem with it. Vote with your wallet. I do, and I vote no.
Are you listening? Damn.